Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aisha and you're watching Samaa News. Here are today's headlines. Nuclear talks between the United States and Iran are expected to take place in Oman on Friday, a regional diplomat said, as tensions escalate with a growing US military presence in the Middle East. President Donald Trump warned that bad things could happen if negotiations fail, while Iran ruled out concessions on its ballistic missile program, calling it a red line. The talks were moved from Turkey at Iran's request, with Tehran now seeking strictly bilateral discussions with Washington. It remains unclear whether Arab states will participate. The diplomatic push comes amid confrontations at sea, including the US downing of an Iranian drone near an aircraft carrier and an IRGC incident involving a US-flagged tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, 53, the prominent son of late Libyan ruler Muammar Gaddafi, was killed by masked armed men at his home in Zintan, southwest of Tripoli. Authorities described it as a cowardly and treacherous assassination, while calls for an urgent investigation are mounting. His death could reshape Libya's political balance amid persistent instability. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says his country remains committed to talks aimed at ending Russia's war in Ukraine, as a new round of US-brokered negotiations got underway in Abu Dhabi. Russia's lead negotiator described the first day of talks as productive, despite Ukraine accusing Moscow of exploiting a US-backed energy truce to stockpile weapons and launch a record missile attack this week. The European Commission has accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of abusing ceasefire talks to continue attacks on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. Commission spokesperson Anita Hipper said Putin showed no sign of wanting to end the war and was misusing negotiations while civilians were being killed. Her remarks came as Ukrainian and Russian negotiators began a second round of US-brokered talks in Abu Dhabi aimed at ending the conflict. Also, European Union ambassadors have approved the structure of a €90 billion loan for Ukraine, aimed at covering most of Kyiv's financial needs in 2026 and 2027, and sustaining its war effort against Russia. According to European diplomats, the agreement reached behind closed doors in Brussels allocates 2/3 of the funds for military aid and the rest for budget support, with Ukraine expected to buy weapons mainly from EU or domestic suppliers. Meanwhile, the Kremlin says Russian forces will continue fighting in Ukraine until Kyiv makes what Moscow calls the necessary decisions to end the war. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia's position remains unchanged and is known to both Ukrainian and US negotiators. Ukraine has rejected Russia's demand to hand over the rest of the Donbas region, territory Moscow has failed to fully capture after 4 years of fighting. At least 21 Palestinians, including 6 children, have been killed in Gaza in the latest spate of tank shelling and airstrikes by Israeli occupation forces. Officials said a medic was killed in Khan Yunis while responding to an earlier strike, hit again at the same location. The latest atrocities come just days after Israel reopened Gaza's main border crossing with Egypt and dealt another blow to a fragile US-backed ceasefire. Greek authorities continue their search and rescue operations off the island of Chios after a migrant boat collided with a Coast Guard vessel, killing 15 people. The Coast Guard said the boat was travelling with its lights off, ignored warnings, and changed course before capsizing and sinking late Tuesday. 14 bodies were recovered and 25 people were rescued, but one woman later died in hospital. Thousands of Venezuelans march in Caracas, demanding the release of President Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, 1 month after US forces seized them. Supporters, many waving Venezuelan flags and wearing red, marched from Plaza Venezuela, chanting, "Venezuela needs Nicolás," and holding signs accusing the United States of kidnapping the couple. Maduro's son condemns the US operation as a violation of Venezuelan sovereignty, while the Bolivarian National Armed Forces support interim president Delcy Rodriguez. French police raid Elon Musk's social media platform X as prosecutors widened a year-long investigation into suspected algorithmic abuse and harmful AI outputs. Musk and former CEO Linda Yaccarino are summoned to appear on April 20th. The inquiry now includes X's AI chatbot Grok, following complaints it produced sexualized deepfakes involving minors. UK and EU authorities have also launched separate probes into Grok and X's moderation of illegal content. Musk called the investigation a political attack, while French prosecutors stressed enforcement of image rights and child protection laws amid growing tensions between European regulators and US tech firms. Britain's former Prince Andrew has moved out of his Windsor residence after fresh US disclosures linked him to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, a royal source confirmed. Andrew, 65, was relocated from Royal Lodge to a cottage on the Sandringham estate earlier this week, reportedly leaving under cover of darkness. The move follows the release of new Justice Department files suggesting he remained in contact with Epstein after his conviction. Andrew has denied wrongdoing. King Charles previously stripped him of royal titles and said his sympathies lie with victims of abuse. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te warns that blocking a proposed $40 billion defense spending package could send the wrong message internationally about the island's resolve to defend itself. The opposition-controlled parliament has stalled the proposal, drawing concern from US lawmakers. Senator Roger Wicker, chair of the US Armed Services Committee, said he was disappointed by cuts to Taiwan's defense budget. Lai said continued delays could slow defense upgrades and lead the international community to question Taiwan's commitment to safeguarding peace in the Indo-Pacific. Pope Leo appeals to the leaders of the United States and Russia to extend the New START Treaty, the last agreement limiting strategic nuclear weapons. Speaking at the Vatican, he stressed the urgent need to prevent a renewed arms race and rising global instability. The treaty, signed in 2010, is set to expire Thursday. Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested a one-year extension in September, but US President Donald Trump has not yet responded. Pope Leo called for cooperation based on trust and ethics, warning that expiration would end over 50 years of formal nuclear arms limits.
And US Vice President J.D. Vance has told a meeting of more than 50 countries that Washington plans to create price floors for critical minerals as part of a push to stabilize global supply chains. Vance said the United States is also proposing a new trading bloc for critical minerals, adding that several countries have already signed on to the initiative. That's all for now. For more updates, visit www.samaa.tv. Thank you for watching Samaa News.